Our topic today is CSRD reporting with SimaPro and The Cards. We have three high-level experts here ready to share their insights with you. It would be interesting for everybody to know a little bit about who is joining us today. So please say hi in the chat and let us know where you are joining from. Our program today looks as follows. We have first Markus Wendin, who is founder of Swedish Miljögiraff, talking about understanding the big picture in environmental analysis. Then we have Pär Lindman, also from Miljögiraff, talking about AI-supported CSRD and Scope 3 reporting. And last but not least, our guest, Birger Löfgren, from the founder of IconsOf. And Birger will be talking about how to address CSRD pain points with the cards. And then we will have some time for questions and discussions in the end. And please note that the event will be recorded and the recording then sent to registered participants. And you can send questions in the chat. And then I will pick them up after all the presentations have been given in the end, and then our experts can then answer you. But now we have a small interactive part here. Let's do a quick poll. You can scan with your phone the QR code here that you see, and then answer the question, and then we can have a look at what kind of answers we have. I will put the link also in the chat, so if you prefer to click the link and answer over there, then you can do also that. So CSRD reporting, where do you stand? When will your company start reporting? Are you in the among those who have to start reporting this year and working with your reports now, or already have published your reports, first reports, or next year, or some other? I'll give you a few seconds to answer, and then we can see the results. Are you able to scan the question? It says no access. Okay. Well, let's skip this. If there's some problem with the questionnaire, we can just move on then with Marcus's presentation. Marcus, are you ready with us?
Yes, I'm ready. Thanks a lot, Larissa.
Okay, sorry about the poll. You can now take on the screen and...
Yeah, do you see a green screen?
Yeah, all is
green
good.
Screen, a good expression.
Go ahead.
Hi and welcome, everyone. I'm so delighted to see that we are so many participants today. It's fantastic. What an interest. So I will talk about the subject, understanding the big picture in environmental analysis. My name is Markus Wendin, and I am the founder of Miljögiraff since 20 years. And I think I didn't have time actually to check through exactly the participants this time, but I think many of you have been at the forums before. We try to do approximately 4 forums per year. But a little brief introduction to Miljögiraff. We say that we are working in search of sustainability, which means that we are working together with our clients to find out the paths to sustainability and sustainable development for those companies and their value chains of products. We are experts in life cycle assessment, And we assist them with strategies for environmental sustainability. We've been doing this since 2003. So we actually had a 20 years anniversary 2 years ago. And now we are 15 persons. So it's a great resource to be 15 experts in LCA assisting our clients. We are also the distributor of the LCA software SimaPro in Finland and Sweden, together with a global group of partners that are 25 in 80 countries. And we estimate that we have 12,000 users right now of SimaPro. It's a little bit difficult to measure, but that's the amount of active licenses. We hope that this ecosystem of LCA experts can be a resource for all of you. And also we can offer local presence and a way to use the resource of cultures and languages all around the world. All of our partners are kind of similar to Miljögiraff in the way we work. So we share a mindset around a life cycle assessment, that it should be transparent, trustworthy, and knowledgeable. For those of you who are not super familiar with SimaPro, just a very brief introduction to that. It's software for LCA that was launched in the early 90s. So it's actually the oldest currently leading LCA software. It's basically a desktop installation, but nowadays we also have an online version. What it does is that it assists you with the LCA modeling and also with the documentation throughout the modeling, so it's transparent. It includes a lot of libraries of life cycle inventory data so that you can model with the pre-made LCA sets. It's a very powerful calculation tool, and it helps you derive the environmental impacts so that you can understand where they arise and find the hotspots to do something about it. It's also a very good tool for visualization of the results, so that you can understand exactly how to do something about the major contributions and also what the path could be towards sustainability. Now a little bit focus on CSRD and why we talk here together. We see that a lot of companies, of course, are find these regulations as a big pressure on them. We think that CSRD is actually a fantastic tool for us if we use it the right way. So we want to give you our perspective and tell you a bit of how you can work in a practical way to manage CSRD and also achieve sustainable development in this. So the sentences here is that it helps us put a focus on what is important, because we have to do this double material analysis in the beginning to understand what is big and what is small. It also helps us finding out how sustainability can drive business by recognizing what is it that we actually have agency over, so that we can create business models, work together with our value chain, and create change for the better for all parts in the value chain and society. Also, I think it's also very clear that CSRD demands that we act. we have to find out a strategy and we have to work on it. It's actually a regulatory demand. So I think that can help us push sustainability forward. From Miljögiraff's side, we can primarily contribute when it comes to the sustainability metrics around climate change. So we can assist with the climate reporting of the organization. And then we are using the greenhouse gas protocol. And with these 3 scopes that the greenhouse gas protocol has, it's the greatest challenge is when it comes to scope 3, because it's that's where you find most of the data points and also most of the environmental impact. So a typical distribution when we do this for companies is that scope 3 represents approximately 73% of the total climate impact of an organization. It's also then very interesting to see that scope 3 is also the challenging part. And we can see, looking at the quality of data used for scope 3, we can see that there is, first of all, a very big gap of data normally, a lack of data. And then we have a huge part that is very low in quality, very generic, not verifiable, not possible to reproduce, etc. And then a very small share is made with high quality data that is verifiable, etc. And the purpose of scope 3 is actually that measuring it, we should know which environmental aspects that are essential to focus on. And we should aim at finding opportunities to reduce the environmental impact of those by choosing a new supplier or working together with a supplier to make investments and reduce environmental impact. We need it also to set relevant environmental goals so that we can work on action plans. And then we need it also to demonstrate results so that we can iterate, improve, and evolve those results. Our approach at Miljögiraff is that we work from overview to a little bit more detailed part, and then to verifiable results about the overall scope. And Pär will talk more about the first part here, the overview, because that's the starting point. And I see that I don't have time to go into the details of this, but I think Pär will tell you more about it. And we can also take it up afterwards in the question section. I want to mention very briefly also that last year we had a new launch of a new product with SimaPro. So along with the SimaPro Craft, which is the desktop version, we now also have Synergy, which is an online version. And it's totally different purposes. The first one is to do craftsmanship and dedicated LCA models for specific products. And the online version is more for making interactive solutions to other data sources that you have, and work primarily with organizational carbon footprint and other environmental aspects. This is one of the examples that you can do with Synergy that we have made together with Tacton, so that you can have a configurable quotation, configurable quote when together with a potential client, so that you can actually see how you as a client can have an effect on the environmental impact by choosing the right configuration of the product. All right, this is the last slide before handing over to Pär. And Pär will describe more about a specific project we made with IconsOf. And it's about categorizing large number of data into useful LCA models. And then Birger will take over and represent IconsOf and talk about the card and how it can support CSRD and use SimaPro in the background for calculations. All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Marcus. And if you want to give another shot at the poll, I adjusted the settings, so you should now it's now a link in the chat, so you can try again and we can have a look then later at the answers. But while listening to Pär, maybe you can go and put in your answers. But thanks, Pär, go ahead.
Perfect. Thank you very much. You see my screen, right? Yeah.
Yes, all good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, very good. Perfect. Thank you very much, Marcus, for the good presentation of the big picture. Now I'm going to go a little bit more into detail to understand how we can actually do this in practice. So in this second part of the program, I will present AI-supported scope-free calculations. And this is, as Marcus said, based on tool for enhancing the efficiency of complex scope-free calculations with the help of AI that we developed at Miljögiraff with the help of IconsOf. And this part will then be based on two topics. First, I want you to understand a little bit of the methodology that the tool is based on, and that is what is called the environmental spending analysis. So we need to understand it a little bit to understand the tool, so we will start there. And then in the second part, we'll then describe how AI can help us in the implementation of this and how we can make it a lot more efficient by using the AI. And as Marcus said, and Larissa, my name is Pär, and I've been working with LCA for 15 years at Miljögiraff, and we had a lot of experience with this environmental spending analysis. And this tool we're going to describe is based on that experience, but also then the increased demand for organizational climate calculations driven by the CSRD then. Great. So now I'm going to give you a brief introduction about what is this environmental spending analysis that we've been talking about, and you probably heard a little bit about because it's mentioned in the CSRD as a methodology of choice if you want to calculate your climate impact from an organizational perspective then. You can see I also call it the environmentally extended input-output analysis in the heading there, and that is what it is called in CSRD, for example. But it has a couple of different names. But it's important just to say that this is not something new. It's an accepted method for quantifying environmental impact, been around for a lot of years. We at Miljögiraff did our first environmental spending analysis 2012. So it's been around for a long time, and it actually gives a very good approximation of climate impact. So it's accepted and it's been along and around long time. And why do we use it then? Well, the big advantage with environmental spending analysis is that it's based on monetary flows, meaning that when we do our scope 3, for example, when we're going to quantify the climate impact of our purchasing, we do not need to have it in kilograms of different materials. We don't need to understand all the different materials, and we don't need to get that unit into mass, which can be very complicated when you have a large material flow of your purchase. So instead, we use the monetary flows, meaning that all we need to know is actually how much money you've been purchasing for, which is usually something that is much more available in companies. So that's the idea. And how can we do that then? I'm going to do this very quickly as well, because this is quite complex. But it's important that we get some sort of understanding from it. So what is happening is that we use two layers to do this. The one is that we use economic input-output tables to understand the flow of money between markets. This gives us an understanding of how money is coming from different industries in the economy. For instance, in Finland, we can understand when we do purchase of plastic, we do understand how much is coming from domestic and how much is imported and how much it exports of plastic from different markets. So then we understand the flow of money from that industry, in this instance, plastic then. that we have been doing in the world for 50 years to understand that flow of money. But what we in recent years also understand is the flow of environmentally impacting substances, such as greenhouse gases. Meaning that we also then understand how different markets and different industries, for instance, plastic industry, is affecting the environment and how much climate change or greenhouse gases it emits. So, for instance, we understand how much Chinese plastic industry is emitting, and then we understand also then how that is imported to the different parts of the world with the flow of the money. Then we can just allocate that according to the flow of money of that total emissions of greenhouse gases from that industry and that market. That means when we purchase plastic in Finland, for instance, we will understand just where that plastic comes from, and from each market it comes from, it can give you an exact amount of CO2 for that purchase then. So for every euro purchased in that industry, we will get the mix of plastic comes from and how much that emits. So that's how it's worked, this methodology. And we can know this because we have different databases, which is this multi-regional environmental linked input-output databases. And the one we are using is the one called Xibase. There is now a version 4 of that one, and that is available for free and is compatible with SimaPro, for instance. So you can import it to SimaPro, and there you can use it, and then you get all this information. Xibase 4 contains 350 different categories of the global economy. Like I said, plastic is one, but it also has other materials like steel or wood, and also different services. So this is also something special with this Xibase, that we also can define different services. And the nice thing with this is that we do not over or underestimate how much climate change, for instance, we have, because we go from the total and then we just allocate it out. So that's why the number we get from these ones are quite verifiable and also have a high degree of robustness, the results from environmental spending analysis. Though it's quite rough that we're going to come to in the end here. So that's the basic of the methodology. When you're going to do this in practice, you do 4 steps. First, you define the accounts that you have your purchases from, meaning that we take all the accounts, we see what they exist of, or what different type of purchases we have there, what materials is it, what supplies do we have. And then we classify each of these accounts to one or several of the categories in Xibase. Because then we did that connection to understand, okay, from the accounts, we see how much economy, how much we purchased. And then by connecting it to Xibase, we can see what is the environmental impact for each euro in that account then. And then we take that information, we export it to SimaPro, and then we can calculate, and then we get a result to understand what is the environmental impact for each of these accounts, and then how much actual money we have spent on those accounts and then those purchases. And what is the hard thing then? Yeah, it's this part. Because you in a big organization, we have a large number of accounts. We are helping a big construction company in Sweden now that has 6,000 accounts. And that means that we have to go into each of that account, understand what it consists of, and then classify it to Xibase. This is a very time-consuming manual work. And that is something that when it gets too big, it's almost undoable for humans. And that's the thing here, because what can help us with this is the AI. The AI is something that is quite good in stuff like that when we're doing manual, quite mundane work that we humans tend to lose concentration when we're doing this 6,000 times in a row. But by teaching the AI how this classification can be made, and we can do this because we have quite an experience. It means that we have a database bank on how we can classify different accounts or product categories before. So we can teach the AI how you can do this by using that old data we have. We can also give the AIs information about the account based on the description and suppliers of that. And what we also do, which is very important, because you cannot make the AI just do this classification and then it's done. Because the AI is quite smart, but it also makes a lot of mistakes. But also, all this classification is always based on local circumstances, meaning that just because you have an account in one company that is called the same, doesn't mean that it consists of the same type of purchases as in another company. It means that every classification needs to be done according to those local circumstances. And that is something the AI cannot handle if we don't teach them a little bit about those local circumstances. So in the tool that we have worked on and we have developed with IconsOf, we help the AI to understand these local circumstances a little bit by manually first then give it, okay, here we have 20 accounts, and then we're going to say this is for these local circumstances, this is how the classification should be done. And I'm not going to go into this in detail, but what we do is that then we iterate that a lot of time. And we do 20 that we help the AI with the local circumstances and to understand how the classification is done. Then the AI calculates the rest and we calculate the results. Then we take another 20 accounts and then we see, have these new information to the AI helped change the results a little bit? Because if the results change when we give it new information, it means that we probably it's not very robust. So we need to change it a little bit more. And we keep on doing this until we say that, okay, we give you new information now every time, but the result doesn't change anymore. And we have set a limit of 95%, meaning that when the result doesn't change more than 5% this time, then we say now it gets quite a robust. And then we keep on doing that. And it's just important to emphasize that you cannot just make, because every time we do this iteration, in the first 3 or 4 or 5 iterations, it changed 20-30% every time. So it's quite naive to think that the AI can do this on its own. We need to have that human dynamic and touch to make this more reliable and robust. And what do we get then by doing this? I think this is going to be wrap up here. So when you do an environmental spending analysis, you get the whole picture. You will get a total, which is what the CSRD actually says that you need to have. You need to understand the total. And that's what you can get from an environmental spending analysis. And what we can see then, which is always the case, or all the times we've done it, is that we can, by understanding what is big and small, and we can see which account that is the biggest ones, we can see where we're going to put our efforts in to understand more. You can apply the 80-20 rules quite big here. And in this example, we can see that the top 5 accounts, that only is 3% of the accounts, stands for more than a quarter of the emission, almost a quarter of the emissions. That means that for these ones, the top ones, here we should have more detailed information and more advanced models, because then the environmental spending analysis is not complex or refined enough to give a good answer. Then we need to get into specific data. We need to use more process and specific LCA methodology to use those. But for the rest of them, when we look at the 50% of the accounts that only stands for less than 10% of the total emissions, then it's perfectly fine to use this methodology. And it's a very efficient way to get a very good number of the climate impact of those. So if we get the total, it will give you an indication of what is big and what is small. And it will give you a roadmap on where you're going to keep on working. Okay, I can see your face, Arissa. So I guess I need to wrap up. Do I have 1 more minute? Yeah, you both are very good. So just to give you how to wrap this up. So the environmental spending analysis gives you a very good overview of the impacts, and you can show not just where you usually focus, it will show you where you should focus, and it gives you the total, which is very good. But it's important to say that it doesn't give you all the results from environmental spending analysis. It's generic. If you take plastic, for instance, purchase of plastic, it's going to be this market average for Finland, meaning that if you do specific purchases of plastic that is important for you, you need to go into detail and calculate those with other methods. So the specific changes and specific materials should be handled with other systems. But then you can take that to the accounts that have this top, say 20 or 20% of the accounts to give you a good overview, be specific for that. Yes, yeah, I think I'm done there. So I will give you next to Birger, that's going to show us even more how to implement CSRD calculations.
Thank you very much,
All right, thank
Pär.
you.
And thanks for everybody who has been answering the poll. I have another question here for you. You can answer while listening to Birger, and we'll have a look at the answers later. We also have a couple of questions in the chat. Thanks very much for those. We will address your questions then after listening to Birger. But here's one more for you if you care to give your answers. Thanks. Go ahead, Birger.
Thank you, Larissa, and thank you, Pär. I think it's exciting what we are doing there, and I think it's so important. I love the sentence that you had, Pär. We will always need the human, the friendly human touch, and I think that is an important lesson. So it's easy to get overwhelmed with what AI can do, but we need to have the human touch in everything that we do. There, and thank you also, Marcus and Larissa and Pär, for inviting us to attend and to contribute to this webinar. Thank you very much. All right, so I will talk a little bit about a tool that we have developed for our clients. It's called The Cards. So apart from we are a company. My name is Pär Lindman. I am a sustainability specialist and co-founder of the company IconsOf. And we are developing solutions for handling environmental management in organizations, specifically targeting CSRD. We are also specialist consultants to support our clients with data on sustainability, which is a challenge nowadays. I'm not alone, but the founding team consists of friends with a robust background from myself. I'm from Rise and SKF, and from Spotify and Capgemini, Society and Microsoft. And we see that this combination of deep knowledge about data is now finally, I would say, required in your businesses. And we like to think of us as the Scandinavian sustainability wizards that you need. And let me briefly go through this. And I know that many of the things that I say are things that you know, but I know also that there are plenty of people who still don't see the full picture. So I will give you a brief introduction to why we have developed the cards. So basically, we have new regulatory requirements on non-financial data, where you in your companies, since this is new data, it's new way of handling this, you don't have the capabilities established for handling this data to meet the requirements that you have. So we need the same traceability and more or less as the financial data that you have been working on daily for many years. And we have many data points to report, and much more and much more requirements on that than what you have had in your previous environmental or sustainability separate reports. And it must be, even though Pär and Marcus talked a lot about the quantitative data, then that is important. So the numbers and the figures here are really important. It's something that you can present in a Power BI. 65-70% of the data points in the CSRD report will be narrative, so it's text, and I'll go through that. And it covers all 3 dimensions of sustainability then. So I guess you have all, or many of you have downloaded the ESRS standards, and the Swedish version of that is 285 pages, and it looks like this. It's a fantastic document, I would say, because it outlines and consolidates a lot of knowledge that we have generated in how to think about and manage sustainability in our organizations. However, it's a very long document. It's very difficult to distinguish what are data points and how to navigate in it. So when we worked with this with our clients a little bit more than a year ago, we saw that, well, here we need to support and do something. It's also a document that refers to, Marcus, you talked about greenhouse gas policy, also refers to other documents here. So it becomes a mess. So in order to tackle that, the EFRAG group, or the EU operational group for corporate reporting, they developed this monster Excel. It's not called that officially, but I usually call it that. It's also a fantastic support for you, and I guess you have downloaded that as well. We can share your link to that later. The nice thing about that, it's not purpose for you to see the lines here, but every line in this Excel document is in fact a defined data point, and each of those lines are things that should be tagged and included in your annual report. In Swedish, förvaltningsberättelse. I don't know what this is in Finnish, but we'll see. And that is great, but still it's a hassle to handle all of these things, because gone are the days where a sustainability manager or responsible person in a company can lock themselves into their room for a month and work out all these things by themselves. That is not possible anymore. You need to collaborate throughout the organization and also with other stakeholders. So basically, the CSRD process looks something like this, and it begins with an interaction with your stakeholders to identify what is big and small in terms of the risk and opportunities, both economical and also related to the impact of the stakeholders. And then you do an internal analysis on what is material, not only to distinguish what data points should be included, but in fact to how you should answer to the different questions and the different data points. What would be a relevant answer for you related to that? And then you do a compliance gap, and that is related to what Pär talked about. This is one of the most important new aspects of CSRD, because before in sustainability reporting you could include the things that you had data on. So right now that is not possible anymore. You need to have a 100% coverage of the data. It means that you cannot skip certain things of your organization. So that's why we are working with the screening methodologies that Pär talked about, in order to capture and make reasonable assumptions, easy sheep models for all the different accounts that are fringe accounts, and not maybe the most important ones, but they need to be included. All right, and then you make a plan, you start collecting data, and you report and follow up. And I would say then, and maybe remember that I said it, but I would claim that it's not too difficult. It's everyone says that it's so difficult with CSRD, and I'd say, well, of course, it's a lot of work. But if you look at it, if we look at it, it's quite reasonable what we are talking about. So if we look at first on the left here, we have the different standards and the environmental standards to start with here, climate change, E1. Within E1, you should structure the data and calculate scope 1 and 2, and then structure the data and calculate scope 3. And that is what Pär talked about. So that is the data that is required on E1. And then there are more strategic narrative information. It's the targets, it's your transition plan, it's your incentive system, it's the policy and financial effects that you will need to include. And then in E2, you need to quantify the data for substances of concern and emission to air, and then financial consequences. And then for E3, you structure the data for water use, but then it's about the more strategic data again that you need to include. So transition plan, measured targets, and financial effects. Similar for biodiversity, transition plan, measured targets, and financial effects. And then for the resource use, it's about structuring the data for resource inflows and outflows, and that is a big new thing for most companies. But then it's your targets and financial effects. So you see that there are a lot of strategic data that needs to be included here, and it's quite straightforward in that sense. If we look at the social standards, it's the S1, where it's about your own workforce. And for most Finnish and Swedish companies, our experience is that you have this data already. You have this data already established, but it needs to be structured into this format, but still. And then for the other parts of the social standards here, it's these strategic, qualitative, narrative data that you need to include. So it's procedures, measures, and targets, policy, procedure, measures, and targets. You can see it. This is what you should report. And finally, then for the governance and ethics, business ethics, it's again the strategic and sort of risk perspective. So putting it that this way, it's a lot, but if you take it step by step, it's very reasonable. However, that is a big thing. How do you take it step by step? So that's why we developed the cards, so that you can learn easy, you can start easy, and you can collaborate easy. And I will spend some time here to do a live demonstration for you on the cards to show you how that works and how that looks. So here you have the cards. So when we worked with clients a little bit more than a year ago, we looked at this big standard. We said, well, can we not just divide it into, I wish I had a deck of cards where each card could be a disclosure requirement. And we said maybe that is a smart way just to structure it. So here in the cards, you have all the different standards here. And for each standard, you have a number of cards where each card represents a disclosure requirement. So for each one of these, you have all the different data points that are related to that specific disclosure requirement. And we built, so how can we trust that these data points are actually the ones that are required, and it's a hassle to just manually take out all the data points in the standard. So we built the cards right on top of the official library in the European Union. So if we press Eurolex up here, you see here Eurolex, if we press that, we get directly to the official publication of Eurolex. So we have disclosure requirement E11. And similarly, if we take another disclosure requirement, somewhere else and press Eurolex, we get to that exact point here. All right. So here you have all the basics for you to collaborate in the organization. If we press a card here or disclosure requirement, we have a set of tools here where you can add files, you can chat with your colleagues around these data points, etc. I will not show that for you right now, but I will demonstrate the assistant that we have embedded in the tool for you to use. And I will show you a few examples. In this example, for example, we have, I said as an example in the webinar, let's move that away. We have created an answer here, and I could simply, the AI here understands where we are in the standard, so I can ask it, is this good? And then it reads and understand what we have done here, and it says that based on the requirements here, maybe I should consider a number of things here. So you get the point here. I have we could also, for example, let's see, we have another data point. Here I've written it in Swedish, and another use case where our clients are using this is to simply please translate, and then it translates obviously what we have written into English in this case, and I can copy paste that into our report. So this is built upon the XBRL standard, so it's structured already from the start, so that when you export, it's structured the way you should use it in your annual report. So I have another question. I have made a note to myself here. Let's see. Let's take this one. Where we have a colleague have described this answer to this question in quite a lengthy and described how we should work with biodiversity policies, and I could ask then, of course, then if you can shorten the answer without hampering the quality for compliance. As you can see here, the AI knows the standard, it knows where I am, and here it gives a proposal. I have one more example. Because another use case that is quite common for our clients is that it's difficult to understand certain expressions. And I looked up one thing here that is difficult to understand. Let's see. 16D, in this question, we should do a qualitative assessment of the potential locked-in greenhouse gas emissions for our key assets and products. So the question here is then, what is locked in? What is locked in? What is locked-in emissions here, and then I get an explanation for me to understand what we mean by locked-in emission. This is something that Pär and Marcus knows well, but most of you or most of people don't understand all the different expressions that are in the standard. So it gives us here an answer about what we mean by locked in greenhouse gas emissions in this case. So that is very helpful out of the box like this in the cards. All right. I'm running out on time, Larissa. I see that. So I will end with this and say that as you can see here also, it's not only in English, you have it in Finnish, you have it in Swedish, and it's all according to the official standards, built right on top the official Finnish and Swedish versions of the standard. So please explore that, and you can, when you have attended this meeting, you can start your 30-day trial period, and also you will get a meeting with me or my colleagues for guidance and onboarding. And so please use this QR code here and sign up and email us at support@thecards.eu and start exploring. So good luck. Thank you, Larissa.
Okay, thank you very much, Birger. Before we go into the questions, let's have a quick look at the answers we have received for the poll here. So we have just about as many participants here who are consulting their clients with CSRD, and a bit of a majority in those who will be reporting like next year, but it's quite an even situation over here. Then what comes to the need for support, then we can see that out of those who have answered here, then there is, we can see a need for digital tools and automation analysis, exactly what we have been talking about here today, and different kind of consultancy and guidance, and also these legal requirements are giving people some need for help, which is not surprising at all. Thanks for giving your input here, and now let's go into the questions. We probably won't have the time to go through all of them, but let's go through them one by one here. We have first, this was for Pär, I believe, referring to your presentation, that this was from Maja Häggström, that can this be used to assess impact on biodiversity locally from, for example, the food industry? And what are the layers that could be added with CFs for ecoregions and yield data? Did you get the question? You can see it in the chat.
Yeah, I got the question. So biodiversity is a very complex subject that we've been struggling in the LCA community to make in a good way. Environmental spending analysis is not the right tool for that. Though it's important to say that environmental spending analysis gives you a result from several impact categories. So I've mentioned a lot of the climate change, but it also we have other of these substances that we can quantify, like acidifying substances or eutrophication and so on. So it's around 10 categories that we can, in a good way, in a robust way, quantify by environmental spending analysis. But unfortunately, biodiversity is not one of them.
Okay, thanks, Pär. Then we have another one here from Tove. I believe this is probably also for you, Pär, but anyone who feels qualified is free to answer here. Can the data from the environmental spend analysis be improved with process LCA data by converting categories to kilograms of material or energy amounts? And would this enhance, and well, would you like to address this part first?
Yeah, sure. No, I can take the whole question because it's a very good question, and it's something that when you do an environmental spending analysis, like I said, it gives you the whole picture, but you need to enhance the quality of the results for the relevant purposes. Like I said, then you understand what is big and small, And then you say, okay, this one is big. This is a large environmental impact. Here we should go into details. And what you do then is exactly what she is mentioning here too, that you try to convert the money into kilograms instead. Because what you can do then is that you can use the process LCA, meaning that you can build up models for your specific case of that purpose. You can understand, okay, if it's plastic, we don't just categories of plastic anymore. We can go in, okay, it's polypropylene or it's bio-based plastic, and then we can get an exact climate change impact factor for that purpose. So that's what you're doing. And in the next step also, we usually do this in 3 data quality levels, as Marcus showed a little bit. So in the basis, we had environmental spending analysis, then we build up models, and even better, what we call data quality 1 is then supply specific data, like an EPD. So when you build up your accounts with environmental spending analysis, and you say, here we have specific data, then you remove that from the environmental spending analysis and the money flow there. And you instead then take the kilograms there and you build up your model like that. And you specify it and you enhance your model accordingly and develop it in your environmental work, so to say.
Let me add, I think it's an important question too, and just a short note on that. What we are doing when we work with our clients to configure their IT environments to handle continuous environmental data, the environmental spend factors that we get is sort of it's used for some of the accounts that are less important. So after doing the screening, it's configured for that, and then for the accounts or for the activities in the company that are more critical for the overall result or for strategic purposes, then we do the calculation based on more process LCA. So that's how we configure it in the companies. I can, Larissa, I saw one question regarding regarding sharing of data in the cards, and I thought that was good because it was one slide that I didn't show. The cards is it's important. The cards is currently it's working on the AI is the first version of the AI, so that is using the public data and is not sharing your internal data at all in the company. Your data in the company is private to you, and it's only shared within your organization. However, we are working because we believe that the collaborative data is the key for next generation of AI agents. So we are working in a collaboration project together with Miljögiraff and a couple of others companies in the automotive industry for developing the sharing of data between clusters in the industrial clusters for helping each other out and to use a vertical AI agent to do that. But that is not for the moment included in the cards, but that is what we are working on. I hope that is clear.
Thank you, Birger. I think our time is running up. Thank you. A special thanks to Birger for being our guest today, guest of Miljögiraff, and also to Marcus and Pär for your good presentations, and for everybody who joined today and gave your good questions and answered our polls. The recording will be shared with you later this week. With your questions, don't hesitate to contact Birger, Marcus, and Pär in LinkedIn or by email, or otherwise do continue the discussion, and they will be happy to assist you with your questions. So from my side, I would like to just wish you all a happy Wednesday, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Larissa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Larissa.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for attending.